Imagine your favorite club spending well over $1 billion.
Right, a billion with a B.
Exactly, a billion with a B. Imagine leading the title race, playing this beautiful football, and feeling like deep in your bones that this is finally the year.
Oh, the hope. That's the dangerous part.
It really is. And then, I mean, imagine watching all of that completely implode all over again in just the span of a few agonizing weeks. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad you could join us for this one.
Yeah, if you're joining us today, you aren't just looking for, like, the final score of a football match. You want the ultimate, perfectly structured shortcut to understanding the biggest, most emotionally charged conversations happening right now.
And today the mission is incredibly singular. We are dedicating this entire deep dive to unpacking the monumental clash between Manchester City and Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium.
Right, a match that ended 2-1 for City, but a result that means so much more than just 3 points on the table.
It really does. I mean, we aren't just looking at a standard post-match report today. We have a massive stack of sources to get through to make sense of this whole thing.
A mountain of them, honestly.
Yeah. We've got highly detailed match statistics. We have expert referee analysis from former Premier League officials regarding some incredibly controversial moments.
Which we will definitely get into.
Oh, absolutely. And perhaps most importantly, we have this torrential downpour of raw, unfiltered reactions from various online fan communities.
Right, the real raw emotion.
Exactly. We're looking deep into places like the Sratalker and our Premier League subreddits, club-specific spaces like our Gunners and RMCFC, and even rival spaces like Red Devils.
Just to see how the rest of the footballing world is digesting this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is exactly where we need to start, because this isn't just a breakdown of 90 minutes of football. It's a full-blown psychological autopsy of modern sports fandom.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. We are going to explore massive tactical failures, a controversial and deeply painful phenomenon the fans are calling the quad bottle.
Ouch.
Yeah, we'll explain that later. Plus, explosive on-pitch altercations that have everyone questioning the rules of the game.
All alone, the crisis of faith in the manager.
Oh, the manager debate is huge. And ultimately, we're going to look at the deep, completely irrational reason why fans keep coming back for more punishment.
They always do.
They really do. But to really understand the absolute emotional meltdown that is currently sweeping the Arsenal fan base, we have to start with the anatomy of the match itself.
Right.
We have to look at the mechanics of why they lost before we can even begin to understand the trauma.
Exactly. I mean, the pathology precedes the psychology here.
Yeah.
This was billed as a high-stakes title decider. Manchester City versus Arsenal. Two total heavyweights.
Right.
And the timeline of how it unfolded is absolutely crucial because of how incredibly fine the margins were on the pitch. It started in the 16th minute, right?
Yeah.
16th minute. Ryan Cherki opened the scoring for Manchester City with this piece of sublime, almost balletic play.
I watched that goal from Cherki, and it was mesmerizing. But break down exactly what happened there. Like, why was it so difficult for Arsenal to stop?
So the data and the tactical breakdowns in our sources show that his control and his balance while dribbling are practically unparalleled right now.
Okay.
What makes Cherki so dangerous is his ability to disguise a shot as just another step in a dribbling sequence.
Oh, interesting. So it's about the element of surprise.
Yeah, exactly. When a player's running with the ball, defenders are watching their hips and their stride to anticipate, when they're going to wind up for a shot.
Right. You look for the windup.
But Cherki doesn't really wind up. He strikes the ball mid-stride. It throws the goalkeeper's timing off completely.
Wow.
It was a beautiful, sudden goal, assisted by a perfectly weighted pass from Matheus Nunes that completely split Arsenal's defensive structure.
But then, literal seconds later, the momentum swings entirely in the opposite direction. It's the 18th minute, and we see a calamitous mistake from Manchester City.
Just brutal.
City's goalkeeper, Donnarumma, is under intense pressure from Arsenal's forward, Kai Havertz.
Right.
Havertz presses him aggressively. Donnarumma hesitates, makes an error, and essentially gifts Arsenal the equalizer. It is 1-1 in a blink.
It was crazy. And the match stayed perfectly balanced on that absolute knife edge for almost 50 minutes.
It was incredibly tense. You could feel the anxiety through the screen.
Oh, totally. And it stayed that way until the 65th minute, when Erling Haaland, as he so often does, stepped up and scored the clutch winner. City 2, Arsenal 1.
Inevitable, really.
Kind of feels that way, right? Now, if we look at the statistical breakdown from our sources, The picture gets really interesting.
Okay, let's hear it.
City dominated possession, holding the ball for 59% of the match compared to Arsenal's 41%.
Which is pretty standard for a Pep Guardiola team.
Yeah, very much so. City also dominated the volume of chances. They had 15 shots with 5 on target, while Arsenal only managed 9 shots with 3 on target.
Okay, but hold on. I'm looking at the expected goals metric here, the XG.
Yeah. The
Like,
XG tells a slightly different story.
it really does. For those listening who aren't, constantly buried in football analytics, expected goals, or XG, is basically a metric that measures the quality of a scoring chance.
Right. It's not just about how many shots you take.
Exactly. It looks at where the shot was taken from, the angle, the pressure from defenders, and assigns a decimal value based on historical data of how often that exact type of shot actually results in a goal.
Which is such a useful tool.
It is. And the XG for this match was razor thin. Manchester City had 1.41, and Arsenal had 1.40. That is virtually a dead heat.
It really is a statistical tie in terms of chance quality. And that tells us something vital here. This was not a blowout.
Right.
City might have had the ball more and they might have taken more shots, but the actual quantifiable threat to the goal was identical.
Wow.
This was a game decided by the absolute slimmest of margins. A bounce of the ball here, a slight hesitation there.
So, if the underlying threat was identical, why did City look so much more comfortable? Like, why does the narrative feel like City dismantled them tactically? Let's talk about how City actually achieved that 59% possession.
Well, it comes down to the contrast in tactical approaches and individual execution. Manchester City displayed this incredibly fluid control of the pitch.
Right. They always seem so coordinated.
Exactly. The sources, particularly the fan reactions, were raving about Bernardo Silva. Fans described him as playing, quote, out of his skin.
That's high praise.
Definitely. What they mean by that is his positional fluidity. He wasn't just staying in one spot. He was constantly dropping deep, making himself available to the center backs to help play the ball out from the back.
Okay, so he's acting like an outlet.
Yeah, and then immediately pushing forward to link the midfield to the attack.
He was the connective tissue for everything City did.
Precisely. And he wasn't doing it alone. You had young Nico O'Reilly putting in a masterful 8.2 rated performance in midfield.
Wow, a breakout game for him.
Absolutely. And defensively, Abdulkadir Kusanov emerged as an absolute colossus.
I saw a lot of chatter about him in the forums.
Yeah, Kusanov wasn't just defending conventionally. He was actively bypassing Arsenal's press. When Arsenal tried to trap him, he had the composure and the passing range to just ping the ball over them or through them.
Completely neutralizing Arsenal's defensive strategy.
Exactly.
Right. Contrast that fluid dynamic movement with Arsenal, and this is where the fan sources start getting incredibly heated and, frankly, very toxic.
Oh, yeah. The forums were melting down.
The Arsenal fans described their manager, Mikel Arteta's tactics, not as fluid, but as brutally rigid. One highly upvoted comment on Reddit literally referred to it as dog shit terrorism football.
Oh, wow. Tell us how you really feel.
I know, right? Now, obviously, that is an extreme emotional exaggeration, but what do they actually mean mechanically? Like, why are they calling it that?
Well, when fans use terms like terrorism football, they're usually describing a style of play that is overly defensive, risk-averse, and completely stifles creativity in favor of maintaining a rigid shape.
So it's boring, essentially.
Yeah, and frustrating to watch when you're losing. They felt Arsenal showed a complete and utter inability to exploit Manchester City's high line.
Okay, let's explain that for the listener, because a high line is a term thrown around constantly.
Yeah, it's a key tactical concept.
Right. A high line means City's defenders aren't sitting back deep near their own penalty area protecting the goalkeeper. They are pushed way, way up the pitch, often near the halfway line.
Very aggressive.
Extremely. What this does is compress the playable area in the middle of the pitch. It suffocates the opponent and makes it easier for City to press and win the ball back quickly.
But there's a risk.
A massive trade-off, yeah. It leaves a terrifying, gaping ocean of empty space behind the defenders. If an Arsenal player makes a fast run into that space and a teammate plays a good pass over the top of the defenders, they are completely through on goal.
Exactly. That space behind the high line is the vulnerability. It is the tactical Achilles heel of Pep Guardiola's system.
Right.
And Arsenal fans are furious because their team completely failed to use that space. They couldn't bypass the press, they couldn't make the right runs, and they couldn't deliver the right passes.
Which is wild for a team of that caliber.
It is. And that failure points directly to two things: personnel and tactical adaptability.
Let's talk about the personnel first, because the fans are pointing incredibly angry fingers at the club's bank accounts right now.
They really are tracking every penny.
They are highlighting the massive investments the club has made, specifically the combined £130 million and roughly £350,000 a week in wages spent on Noni Madokas and Victor Gokers.
That is a staggering amount of money.
It really is.
It's elite-level money, which brings elite-level expectations. And the fans feel those expectations were entirely betrayed in this match.
So let's look at Gyökeres.
Yeah, when he came on as a substitute in the 84th minute, replacing Zubimendi, the fans felt he was practically invisible. He was a ghost.
Just totally ineffective.
Completely. Multiple comments in the sources literally said it felt like playing 10 men against 11 because his impact was so negligible. He couldn't hold the ball up, he couldn't stretch the defense, he just existed on the pitch without contributing.
And then there's Kai Havertz. Now, Havertz is a complicated figure in this match because he did score the equalizer. He forced the error from Donnarumma.
Right, he had that one big moment.
But the fans are still deeply frustrated with him. Why is that?
Because of his inefficiency in key moments. Yes, he scored, but our sources highlight that he missed two massive crucial chances later in the game. Chances that could have altered the entire trajectory of the title race. Furthermore, he was frequently caught offside.
Which goes back to the high line issue.
Exactly. When you are trying to exploit a high line, timing your run is everything. If you go a fraction of a second too early, the flag goes up and the attack is dead.
And Havertz was struggling with that.
Yeah, Havertz kept mistiming those runs, which destroyed Arsenal's momentum and let City's defense off the hook.
Okay, I want to unpack this tactical rigidity we're talking about. The fans say the system is too strict. I want to throw an analogy at you and see if this aligns with what the sources are saying.
Okay, let's hear it.
Is Mikel Arteta's rigid tactical system like a chess master who has spent his entire life memorizing one highly choreographed, incredibly complex opening sequence?
Right.
He knows the first 20 moves perfectly, but the second the opponent plays an unexpected move, say Pep Guardiola shifts his pieces in a way Arteta didn't prepare for, the chess master completely falls apart because he doesn't actually know how to improvise in the middle game.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and if we connect it to the bigger picture painted by these fan sources, that is exactly how segments of the fan base view him.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. They see Arteta as an incredible pre-match planner, but an in-game fundamentalist. There's a brilliant observation in the sources that actually points back to a previous match against Bournemouth, which really illustrates your chess master point.
Oh, what happened against Bournemouth?
In that game, Bournemouth surprised Arsenal by playing a 4-2-4 formation, and they sat in what is called a forward mid-block.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Essentially, they didn't press all the way up to the goalkeeper, Raya, but they clogged up the middle of the pitch just outside Arsenal's defensive third, completely stifling Arsenal's ability to pass the ball into midfield.
They just built a wall.
Exactly. And the crucial observation from the fans was that Arsenal didn't adapt to this surprise move. They didn't change their passing patterns or their shape.
They just kept trying to force the ball through the clogged middle.
Yeah, running around frantically until they lost it.
They kept trying to play the memorized opening even though the board had changed.
Exactly. The fans feel that Arteta micromanages every single pass and position from the touchline. You can see him constantly waving his arms, pointing exactly where players should stand.
It's like he's using a joystick.
Right. The critique is that this makes it impossible for the players to play instinctually. Every movement is a predetermined sprint, a forced mechanical rotation rather than a fluid reading the game marathon.
So your analogy holds up perfectly. A brilliant opening, but a complete paralysis when middle game improvisation is required.
Exactly.
And you know what? That lack of improvisation seemed to extend directly to his substitutions in this specific match against City. The fans were absolutely baffled by his choices.
They were beyond baffled. They were furious.
What was the biggest issue?
Well, the most glaring example was taking off Ebereki Eze in the 74th minute for Leandro Trossard. Up to that point, Eze had arguably been Arsenal's most dangerous attacking player.
Right. Didn't he hit the crossbar?
He did. He hit the crossbar with a brilliant shot. He was one of the few players who looked capable of creating something out of nothing. Taking him off when you desperately need a goal felt incredibly counterintuitive to the fan base.
Yeah, that's puzzling. And it wasn't just Eze. Arteta brought on Gabriel Martinelli to replace Madueke, which didn't change the dynamic of the game. And we also have to look at the defensive setup.
Right, the backline.
Arteta chose to start a rookie center back, Christian Mosquera, completely out of position at right back, instead of starting the established veteran Ben White. Why?
So the Whisper Network and the fan forums suggest that Ben White simply isn't up to speed physically or tactically right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, fans noted that White had really struggled in previous, less demanding matches against Southampton and Sporting CP. There were even rumors circulating that the club might look to sell him in the upcoming summer transfer window.
Wow, that's a big shift.
So Arteta opted for the rookie. Throwing a rookie center back out wide against Manchester City's fluid attack is an enormous gamble, and it contributed to that feeling of instability on the right flank.
But this is where the pure tactical analysis of formations and substitutions bleeds over into deep psychological trauma.
Right, the bigger picture.
Because failing to adapt tactically in one single match, even a big one, wouldn't usually cause a full-scale existential meltdown across a fan base.
Usually not.
But this match wasn't just 90 minutes of football. It acted as a massive psychological trigger. It brought the entire Arsenal fan base face-to-face with the horrifying realization that history is repeating itself.
A quad bottle.
Exactly, the quad bottle. This is the phrase that is absolutely dominating the forums right now. For anyone listening who isn't familiar with the term bottling in British sports culture, it essentially means choking under pressure.
It means grasping defeat from the jaws of victory.
Right. Arsenal was competing for 4 different cups this season: the Premier League, the Champions League, the FA Cup, and the League Cup. They are looking incredibly strong. The fans were dreaming of a historic quadruple.
And
Suddenly, in a matter of a few weeks, they are out of the 2 domestic cups, and now, with this devastating loss to City, they have lost their grip on the top of the Premier League table.
And this is the critical context here.
Yeah.
This isn't just a one-off disappointment. This is the 3rd season in a row that Arsenal has choked in the final stretch of games.
The 3rd year in a row.
Yes. 3 consecutive seasons of building incredible hope from August to March, only to spectacularly collapse in April and May. You can practically feel the collective despair and exhaustion bleeding through the screens when you read these sources.
It's palpable. It's a genuine sporting trauma. I mean, think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you build your hopes up for something like a promotion, a relationship, a house you want to buy, and it falls through?
Right, it hurts.
And then it happens again the next year. By the 3rd time, you don't even want to hope anymore because the disappointment is physically exhausting. That is exactly where Arsenal fans are right now.
It is a textbook trauma response. And what is fascinating from a sociological perspective is the stark dichotomy in how the fan base is reacting to this repeated trauma.
Oh, how so?
When we categorize the fan sentiments in the sources, we see 2 completely distinct groups. You have Group A, the despondent fans.
Realists, perhaps?
Or the fatalists, depending on how you look at it. These are the fans who look at this 3-year pattern and say, this downfall needs to be studied by psychologists.
Wow.
They believe the team is, quote, mentally shot. They're looking ahead to their upcoming match against Newcastle United. And they aren't just worried. They are actively terrified.
They think the team's just going to give up.
Yeah, they're predicting that the team's going to get eaten alive by Newcastle because the players' mental fortitude has completely evaporated after this City loss. They believe the season is over.
But then you have Group B. And this group absolutely fascinates me. These are the defiant optimists, the hopium addicts, the fans who refuse to let go of the rope until their hands are bloody.
Exactly. Group B is ignoring the emotional weight and looking strictly at the mathematics of the remaining schedule. They are trying to logic their way out of despair.
How does the math work in their favor?
They argue that despite this loss, Arsenal actually has an easier run of remaining games compared to Manchester City. They point out that City still has to navigate tricky, potentially dangerous fixtures, what English football fans call banana skins.
Ah, right.
City has to play Everton, who are fighting for survival, and Aston Villa, who are very strong.
So their logic is, yes, we lost today, but City isn't perfect.
Right. Their entire mental health is hanging on the idea that if City drops even a few points in those tricky games and Arsenal manages to win all their remaining fixtures, Arsenal could theoretically still win the league, potentially even on goal difference.
That's a lot of ifs.
It is. They are desperately clinging to the fact that City technically only has a 1-point lead if Arsenal wins their game in hand. It is mathematical hope, battling against historical trauma.
The emotional whiplash these fans are experiencing is just stunning. Think about this timeline. Just 24 hours before this match against City, Arsenal fans were on top of the world.
They were ecstatic.
They were joyously celebrating because Tottenham Hotspur, their most bitter, hated local rivals had just drawn a match with Brighton. Arsenal fans were laughing at Spurs dropping points. It was a great day to be a Gooner. And then, literally one day later, they lose to City and are facing an absolute existential threat to their own title hopes. It is sports karma operating at light speed.
It really is. And when a team repeatedly falls at the final hurdle like this, when the fans experience that violent whiplash from arrogant joy to crushing despair year after year, the spotlight inevitably turns away from the players and shines directly on the architect of the project.
Which brings us to the very core of this entire crisis. The tactical flaws we discussed and the psychological weight of the quad bottle lead directly to a massive civil war over the manager, Mikel Arteta.
Oh, the Arteta conundrum. Let's get deeply into this.
We have to, because his public comments around this match really threw gasoline on a fire that was already burning.
Oh, absolutely.
Before the match, the biggest game of the season, he was quoted by the press saying, "I'm on fire," and insisting he had no fear. He was projecting this supreme, almost aggressive confidence.
Setting himself up.
Yeah. And then, after losing the match, his tone shifted dramatically. He mentioned the concept of luck, suggesting that Manchester City benefited from some Man City luck. And the fans, well, they did not take kindly to that excuse.
They absolutely hated it. And it wasn't just Arsenal fans who called him out.
Right, rivals too.
Yeah, one rival fan on Reddit pointed out the absurdity of the luck comment by highlighting that City actually created more clear chances and hit the goalpost twice during the match.
So it wasn't just a lucky bounce.
No, so to claim City won purely due to luck rather than superior execution came across as deeply arrogant and detached from reality. But for the Arsenal fan base, the anger over that press conference is just a symptom of a much deeper systemic frustration.
It runs so much deeper. We have to look at the macro picture here. Mikel Arteta has been the manager of Arsenal for 7 years. That is an eternity in modern football.
Truly is.
And in those 7 years, there has been no Premier League title. It has been 22 years overall since the club's last league title, going all the way back to the Invincibles era.
A long drought.
And Arteta's only major trophy remains a single FA Cup from 5 years ago. And here is the kicker. This is despite the club spending well over $1 billion in player signings under his tenure.
$1 billion. When you spend that kind of money, the expectation is dominance.
Right.
So the fan base is currently fracturing right down the middle over a very critical philosophical question. What is Arsenal's long-term competitive identity under Arteta?
That's the million or billion-dollar question?
Exactly. Is their identity truly built on dominating possession, suffocating teams, and playing beautiful football, as Arteta claims? Or, as the critics argue, has it devolved into a rigid, predictable, boring style that looks nice on a spreadsheet but ultimately yields zero major trophies when the pressure is on?
Right. It is the classic debate of trust the process versus demand the sack. Let's look at the specific camps you've categorized from scanning the online forums. First, the Arteta out camp. What is their main argument?
Their patience is completely gone. Evaporated.
Yeah.
They argue that 7 years and $1 billion is more than enough time and resources for any manager to prove they can win the biggest prizes.
Fair point.
They are demanding immediate change if Arsenal loses the league this year. They feel the current setup has hit an unbreakable ceiling. And they aren't just complaining into the void. They are actively naming the replacements they want.
Oh, really? Who are they asking for?
The names being floated in these forums are very telling about what the fans think they lack. They want someone like Ruben Amorim, the Sporting Lisbon manager, who is seen as the hottest tactical property in Europe right now.
Okay, a fresh tactical mind.
Right. Or you want Ange Postecoglou. And the reasoning for Ange is fascinating. One fan noted that Ange actually won trophies while managing Tottenham Hotspur and is viewed as a ruthless killer.
Calling a Spurs manager a killer in an Arsenal forum, that's desperate.
It really is. They also want Arne Slot from Feyenoord. Even Unai Emery, which is incredibly ironic given he was sacked by Arsenal before Arteta arrived. Even Igor Tudor is mentioned.
Wow, they're just throwing names at the wall.
Yeah, the overarching sentiment of this camp is best summarized by one highly upvoted comment. Arteta rebuilt the car beautifully, but now they need a real driver.
I love that analogy.
Someone with, quote, balls, and someone who won't play dogshit terrorism football when a title is on the line.
He rebuilt the car so well done for that. Now they need to find a real driver.
It perfectly captures the feeling of gratitude mixed with exhaustion.
Exactly.
But then you have the other side of the Civil War, the trust the process camp. And I have to say, their argument is grounded in a heavy dose of economic reality.
It is. The Trust the Process camp argues that we cannot forget where Arsenal was before Arteta arrived.
Right, the banter era.
Yeah, he took a club that had slid into mid-table irrelevance, a club with a toxic dressing room and a bloated wage bill, and he completely transformed their culture. He made them contenders again.
That's undeniably true.
And their primary defense of him relies on looking across the pitch at who they are trying to beat. They look at Arsenal's squad and make a very sobering point. Apart from midfielder Declan Rice and center-back William Saliba, virtually none of Arsenal's current players would even make it into Manchester City's starting 11.
Wow, that is a staggering reality check. It is crucial context. They are arguing that Arsenal, despite spending $1 billion over 7 years, is competing against a totally different kind of financial juggernaut.
Right.
Manchester City is a state-backed entity with unparalleled global resources. One fan pointedly argued that Pep Guardiola looks like a better tactical manager simply because he has unlimited money and could afford to have several £100 million players sitting on his bench as backups.
Hard to argue with that.
So the Trust the Process camp preaches patience and long-term stability. They are saying, do not throw away this incredible foundation for the unknown. If the league is lost this year, pivot focus to trying to reach the Champions League final, but whatever you do, keep this stability.
Okay, but I have to ask you a provocative question here, and I want to relate this to you, the listener. Have you ever stayed in a bad relationship or maybe a job you outgrew purely because of how much time and effort you had already put into it?
The classic trap.
Right. You think to yourself, I've spent 5 years here. If I leave now, it was all a waste. That psychological trap is called the sunk cost fallacy.
Right.
So my question to you is, at what point does trusting the process at Arsenal just become a massive sunk cost fallacy? Yes, you spend $1 billion. Yes, you rebuilt the car beautifully. But if the mechanic keeps stalling the car on the final lap of the Grand Prix 3 years in a row, do you eventually need to fire the mechanic and hire that race car driver, regardless of how much you owe the mechanic for building the car in the first place?
That is the exact agonizing dilemma dividing the fan base right now.
Yeah.
It is the intense tension between gratitude for the rebuild and the ruthless, cutthroat demand for elite success.
Yeah.
The sunk cost fallacy is a very real psychological anchor here. The fans have invested so much emotional energy into defending Arteta against rival fans, into believing in his specific, rigid vision, that admitting his vision might have a hard ceiling feels like a deep personal failure for the fans themselves.
Oh, that's a great point. It reflects on them. Exactly. But on the other hand, the reality of competing against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City requires near perfection. It raises an uncomfortable question that the fans are terrified to answer. Is Mikel Arteta actually capable of perfection? Or is he, as one fan in the sources brutally labeled him, the Gareth Southgate of club football?
The Gareth Southgate of club football. Ouch! For those who don't follow the English national team, Gareth Southgate is famous for taking a struggling team, making them competitive, getting them to finals. Getting them all the way to finals, and then consistently losing those finals because he lacks the tactical ruthlessness to win the biggest games.
It's a brutal comparison.
That comparison is going to sting Arsenal fans deeply. And all of this underlying frustration, the tactical stalemate on the pitch, the civil war over the manager, the suffocating fear of the quad bottle, it didn't just stay in the stands or on Reddit.
Oh, no, it definitely didn't.
It boiled over onto the actual pitch in a physical clash that has absolutely everyone talking. We need to talk about the 83rd minute, Gabriel Magalhaes versus Erling Haaland.
This was the absolute boiling point of the match. Throughout the entire 90 minutes, Arsenal's central defender, Gabriel, and City's striker, Haaland, were locked in this incredibly intense physical battle.
Just wrestling all game.
Yeah, they were constantly wrestling, shoving off the ball, testing each other's boundaries. It was a heavyweight fight inside a football match. But in the 83rd minute, it escalated dramatically.
What exactly happened?
The ball was dead, but Gabriel engaged Haaland. He aggressively grabbed him, visibly ripping Haaland's shirt in the process, and then made a sudden aggressive forward motion with his head that looked very much like an attempted headbutt.
It looked exactly like a headbutt, and the referee, Anthony Taylor, was standing right there. He blows his whistle, walks over, and, he only gives Gabriel a yellow card, not a red card, a yellow.
Correct. A yellow card, meaning Gabriel gets to stay on the pitch.
Yeah.
And to understand why a referee would only give a yellow for what looked like violent conduct, we have to look at the expert insight provided in our sources from former Premier League referee Graham Scott. Scott reviewed the footage, and he actually vehemently defends Anthony Taylor's decision on the pitch, as well as the VAR's decision not to intervene.
Wait, hold on. Stop right there. A former referee defends a headbutt. How is that logically possible? Let's unpack his exact reasoning, because the fans, particularly the neutral and rival fans, are absolutely losing their minds over this.
Well, Scott's analysis is highly technical, and it focuses heavily on the specific mechanics of movement and the protocols of refereeing. He states that Gabriel's head motion was a, quote, late flourish while he was stepping away from Haaland.
A late flourish.
That is the terminology he used. He argues that because Gabriel was moving backward, there was no actual forceful contact that would meet the strict threshold for violent conduct.
Okay.
Furthermore, Scott explains the dynamic between the on-field referee and the video assistant referee, or VAR. The VAR for this match was John Brooks.
Right.
Scott explains that Brooks would have been fully aware that Anthony Taylor had a clear, unobstructed, real-time view of the incident on the pitch.
So he didn't miss it.
Exactly. Because Taylor saw it happen with his own eyes and deemed it only worthy of a yellow card in the moment, the VAR protocol dictates that Brooks would need overwhelming, clear and obvious evidence that Taylor made a massive objective error in order to upgrade it to a red card.
The clear and obvious rule.
Yes. And Scott argues that because the contact was minimal, there was scant evidence to justify the VAR overriding the on-field referee.
Okay, but I have to aggressively push back on this on behalf of the fans who are outraged. Contrast that highly technical, by-the-book semantic defense with common sense. Are we seriously hiding behind referee semantics here?
It's frustrating, for sure.
If I walk down the street, grab you by the collar, rip your shirt, and thrust my forehead at your face with aggressive intent, the police aren't going to let me go because I did it with a late flourish while stepping back. That is absurd.
That's a very vivid analogy, but yeah, it makes sense.
The rules of football don't just punish the impact of a strike. They are supposed to punish the intent. Even if the physical contact was a flourish, the clear intent to headbutt, combined with literally ripping the man's shirt, should have been a straight sending off.
You are echoing exactly what the outraged fans are screaming in the forums right now. And this perceived injustice feeds directly into a massive ongoing narrative regarding wildly inconsistent officiating in the Premier League.
Because it happens every week.
Right. Fans across different subreddits immediately started pulling up video clips of past incidents to cite precedents. They pointed out that just a week prior to this match, a player in another game received a straight red card simply for a slight hair pull.
Exactly. A hair pull is a red, but a headbutt motion is a yellow.
So the fans are asking a very logical question. How can the rulebook dictate that a minor hair pull is violent conduct worthy of a red card, but a violent shirt rip combined with an aggressive headbutting motion is only a yellow? It completely breaks the fans' trust in the consistency of the rules.
And it gets even deeper and more conspiratorial. Rival fans, particularly the Manchester United fans in their subreddit, were furious about this decision. They claim that Arsenal actually benefits from a systemic bias from the PGMOL.
The refereeing body.
Right. For those unaware, the PGMOL is the Professional Game Match Officials Limited, the body that referees all English professional football. One United user sarcastically posted, "Angel Gabriel doesn't get ref like mortals."
Wow.
They truly believe Arsenal gets away with things other teams wouldn't. Meanwhile, if you go to the Arsenal forums, they are arguing the exact literal opposite.
Of course they are.
They claim that Manchester City players, specifically midfielders like Rodri and Bernardo Silva, get away with murder every single week. They argue City players constantly commit cynical tactical fouls to stop counterattacks, and the referees intentionally refuse to give them yellow cards.
It is a massive tribal conspiracy theory on both sides, which forces us to synthesize a much larger issue for the sport as an entertainment product. Does this inconsistent officiating, particularly regarding physical play, altercations, and what is allowed in a heavyweight clash, fundamentally undermine the standard of fair competition?
It's a huge question.
Or, and this is a very valid counterargument presented by some traditionalists in our sources, is the referee's choice to put his whistle away and let two heavyweights wrestle simply part of the spirit of the game in a high-stakes title clash? There is a strong argument that nobody, not the broadcasters, not the neutrals, wants to see a massive title decider ruined and decided by a soft red card for a scuffle.
But isn't that an incredibly slippery slope? The rules are supposed to be the rules, regardless of whether it's minute 1 of a friendly or minute 89 of a title decider.
Yeah, consistency is key.
If you change the rules based on the drama of the moment, it ceases to be a sport and becomes sports entertainment. But setting the referee aside, I want to interject with an observation on the players' mentalities here, because I think the psychology of that specific clash speaks volumes about why City won and Arsenal lost.
Oh, definitely.
Look at how they handled the moment. The fans and the sources noted it perfectly. Erling Haaland, despite all the shoving, despite getting his shirt ripped, came to play and win. He never lost focus on the ultimate objective, putting the ball in the net.
He kept his cool.
Yeah. Whereas the fans felt Gabriel, perhaps influenced by this highly emotional, highly tense, almost desperate environment that Arteta has cultivated, came to antagonize. Gabriel lost his emotional control.
He got caught up in the fight.
Exactly. He got caught up in the ego of the physical battle, while Haaland got caught up in the football. Gabriel wanted to win a wrestling match. Haaland wanted to win the Premier League. And minutes later, Haaland scored the winner.
That is a brilliant distinction, and it strikes at the heart of the Arsenal fan base's fears. It highlights the vast difference between cold, clinical execution and emotional overinvestment.
Yeah.
Gabriel's actions in that moment were a microcosm of Arsenal's larger structural struggle as a club. They have an absolute abundance of passion and desire, but a fatal deficit of cold, hard composure when the margins are thinnest.
So with Arsenal seemingly imploding under the crushing weight of their own emotions and expectations, and Manchester City marching clinically forward toward another title like an emotionless machine, we have to look outward. We have to look at how the rest of the footballing world digests this outcome.
Right. Zooming out.
Let's step completely out of the City and Arsenal echo chambers for a moment and look at the neutrals and the rival fans.
This is where the sociology of fandom gets incredibly darkly entertaining. We look deeply into rival subreddits, particularly the Manchester United forums, to see how a third party processes an Arsenal collapse versus a Manchester City victory.
And what did they say?
Well, the overarching, undeniable sentiment is that rival fans find Arsenal's recurring spring demise to be, in their words, peak entertainment.
Oh, yeah. They love it. They literally call it AFTV and chill.
Yes.
AFTV is Arsenal Fan TV, a hugely popular YouTube channel famous for capturing Arsenal fans having absolute screaming meltdowns outside the stadium after a loss.
It's notorious.
So rival fans are essentially saying they are grabbing popcorn, putting their feet up on the couch, and firing up YouTube just to revel in the misery, the tears, and the infighting of the Arsenal fan base. It is pure, concentrated schadenfreude. But here's what I find fascinating.
Yeah.
It presents a very bizarre moral dilemma for these rival fans.
How so?
Who do they actually want to win the league? Because if you read the comments, they seem to absolutely hate both options.
It is the ultimate lesser of two evils debate for them. Let's unpack option A, Manchester City winning the league. Rivals naturally despise City because they are their direct, geographical, or historical competitors. But the hatred for City has a very specific, almost apathetic flavor. They actually prefer City winning the league over Arsenal because City's success feels, in their own words, plastic or hollow.
Right, and we have to explain why it feels hollow. It is because of the 115 financial charges hanging like a dark cloud over the club.
The elephant in the room.
Exactly. For the listener who might not know, Manchester City is currently facing 115 charges from the Premier League for alleged breaches of financial fair play rules over a 9-year period. These are accusations of hiding the true source of their funding, inflating sponsorships, and essentially operating outside the financial rules that every other club has to follow.
Precisely. The perception among rival fans is that City has simply bought their success outside the rules of the game. They view City as an artificial construct backed by the unlimited wealth of a nation-state.
Makes sense why they'd resent it.
As one very blunt Manchester United fan put it in the forums, nobody cares about Oilchester winning. They won the treble and nobody gave a fuck.
Wow. Wow, okay.
The implication is fascinating. A City title doesn't actually hurt rival fans emotionally because it doesn't feel legitimate. It's an asterisk title, it's expected, it's clinical, and it is completely devoid of any romantic, organic footballing narrative.
It's exactly like playing chess against a supercomputer. If you lose to the computer, you don't take it personally. It's a machine. It was programmed to beat you.
That's a great way to think about it.
But then you look at option B, Arsenal winning the league. And rivals despise Arsenal with a fiery, deeply personal human passion. They view the Arsenal fan base as bitter, delusional, and totally insufferable.
The fans really have a reputation.
They feel that if Arsenal, a traditional club with organic growth, were to win the league, the fans would be so arrogant that they would never, ever let anyone hear the end of it. It would be a genuine emotional success story, and therefore it would hurt the rivals so much more.
And this strange dynamic brings up a specific, truly fascinating anecdote from our sources that perfectly illustrates how deeply personal and wonderfully petty sports schadenfreude can be in the real world.
Oh, I loved this part. Share the story.
Okay, so in one of the rival threads discussing this match, there was a comment from a fan who shared a personal story. He explained that he had recently lost his job of 12 years. He was caught up in company layoffs.
Which is awful.
Right. And the person who orchestrated those layoffs, the boss who actually fired him, happened to be a massive vocal Arsenal fan.
Wow, that is brutal.
So this fan, in the midst of the real-world trauma and stress of losing his livelihood and trying to figure out how to pay his bills, admitted that he found immense, genuine therapeutic joy in watching Arsenal lose to Manchester City.
Just purely because of his boss.
Exactly. Because it meant that the boss who fired him was going to have a miserable, agonizing weekend.
That is incredible, and honestly, it is so human. It shows that fandom isn't just about the crest on the shirt or the tactics on the pitch. It's a proxy for our real-world grievances. It is a safe, socially acceptable way to settle scores and feel victory over people we can't defeat in our real lives. The boss might have taken his job, but Erling Haaland took the boss's happiness.
A small victory for him.
Which brings us, I think, to the most profound part of this entire deep dive. After all the tactical failures we've analyzed, after the trauma of the quad bottling, the screaming over refereeing controversies, the $1 billion spent, the sunk cost fallacy of the manager, and the relentless, cruel mockery from every rival fan on the internet, well, we arise at the core question of your journey as a listener today.
The big why.
Why? Why do fans voluntarily put themselves through this psychological torture year after year?
It is the ultimate question of sports psychology. Why subject yourself to this pain? To explore it, we found a truly poignant story buried deep in the Arsenal forums, hidden beneath all the anger, the tactical debates, and the calls for the manager to be sacked.
This one really got me.
Yeah. A deeply frustrated parent posted that their 3-year-old child was fighting them tooth and nail that morning. The child was absolutely desperate to wear their little Arsenal jersey to the local park. And this was on the very day of this crushing, title-damaging defeat to City.
So the parent is reeling from the loss.
Right. The parent, projecting all of their own adult despair, anger, and embarrassment onto the situation, asked the forum, "How do I tell him?"
It's heartbreaking in a way. Like, how do I explain to a toddler that our team just choked for the 3rd year in a row, that our manager's tactics are rigid, that we wasted $1 billion, and that the rival fans at the park are going to be laughing at us?
Exactly. The parent wanted to protect the child from the embarrassment of wearing the colors of a defeated tribe. But the response from the online community was immediate, and it was profoundly moving.
It wasn't what you'd expect from the internet.
No, it wasn't cynical, it wasn't toxic. Other fans, who just moments before were screaming about expected goals and referee bias, rushed to respond to this parent. They said things like, "Let the kid wear it, the colors are fire. This is exactly the time to wear the merch."
This is exactly the time to wear the merch. That genuinely gave me chills. Let's unpack that rationalization of loyalty, because when you read those responses, you see a very clear divide between the emotional stoicism of veteran fans and the acute, fiery frustration of younger or newer fans.
We absolutely do. Long-term fans, ones who have suffered through decades of ups and downs, have developed a vital psychological coping mechanism.
What's that?
They are able to completely, surgically separate their deep, unconditional love for the club's enduring identity, the crest, the colors, the history, the community, from their burning temporary hatred for the current decision-makers, the manager, or the players who underperformed on that specific day.
So the club is bigger than the people running it.
Yes. They view the club as an enduring, almost sacred institution that belongs to them, while the players and managers are just temporary, flawed custodians who are currently letting the institution down.
So telling the kid to wear the gear after a painful loss, well, it isn't about celebrating a result. It's not about endorsing the 1.40 XG or pretending the rigid tactics worked or defending Mikel Arteta's substitutions.
Not at all.
It is an assertion of identity. It is pure resilience. It is walking out into the world, knowing your team just failed on the biggest stage, knowing the rival fans are laughing at you and calling you bottlers and saying, "I love this team. This is my Fing team. Win, lose, or draw." It is an act of defiance against the pain.
It is a profound human psychological need to maintain identity and community through the symbols of the tribe, even when the tribe has been defeated on the battlefield.
That's beautifully said.
For that 3-year-old child, the red shirt just means joy. It's just a cool shirt. But for the adult telling to wear it proudly, it means loyalty in the face of suffering. It means that the community endures long after the 90 minutes are up.
And that brings us full circle on this journey. We started this deep dive looking for clinical precision. We wanted the tactical X-ray of exactly why Arsenal lost a football match to Manchester City.
We got into the weeds.
We really did. We looked at Donnaruma's error, Cherki's incredible dribbling, the 59% possession stats, and the mechanical failure of a rigid 4-2-4 counter tactic against a high line. We diagnosed the trauma of the quad bottle and debated whether trusting Mikel Arteta has simply become a billion-dollar sunk cost fallacy.
We covered a lot of ground.
We even examined the physical boiling point of Gabriel's headbutt and the perceived conspiratorial biases of the PGMOL.
But what we actually found wasn't clinical at all. We found the messy, irrational, beautiful reality of human emotion.
Yeah, we did.
We found a fan base tearing itself apart over tactical philosophy, rival fans finding genuine solace for real-world job losses and the sporting misery of others, and we found a frustrated parent learning about emotional resilience from a toddler who just likes the color red.
It is the absolute muddy waters of fandom, and it is completely fascinating. So, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot today about the intense pain of the Arsenal fans and the cold clinical success of Manchester City.
I have a question to leave with you based on exactly that dynamic. Think about the nature of sports.
Okay.
If sports are ultimately, at their core, an entertainment product designed to make us feel something, what is the sheer agony of the bottle, the drama, the tribal infighting, the soaring delusional hope in August, and the crushing inevitable despair in May? Is all of that actually providing a richer, more compelling, more deeply human experience than the cold, clinical, almost inevitable success of a financial juggernaut?
Oh, that's heavy.
Are the Arsenal fans, in their absolute misery, actually getting a better story than the City fans in their triumph?
That is a phenomenal question. Is the pain the actual point of the whole thing? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We've gone from the tactical chalkboards of the Etihad Stadium to the absolute emotional depths of the human condition. Keep questioning the margins, keep looking past the final score, and we will catch you next time.